So our theme for this month has been inspired by the summer heat. This heat has crossed our path, of course, and how we keep cool during this time. And we've said that our response to this physical heat could be a powerful metaphor for how we live our lives when it heats up in our lives. So we're exploring different ways to keep our spiritual cool when that heat flares up. Continuing our work from last week, today's theme is "It's time to simmer down," or taming your anger, which is what I said. Taming your anger, if you have any anger. Most people don't, I know. But let's go with it today, okay? So we're going to take an open and honest look at how we heat up with the emotional response that's called anger by exploring questions like, what is it really about? Is it ever productive? And most importantly, what can you do with your anger? What can you do with it if it does flare up? Here's a little heads up. The answers to these questions may not be what you expect. So before we look at today's talk, we're going to review just briefly. Last week, we looked at the shadow side of life. Yeah? Shadow side of life. That was good. And when we talk about the shadow side of life, we're talking with a lower L. That means it's relative. That's our relative self, okay? There's a relative self, and then there's the capital L, which is the absolute self. So things in life are relative, but then things that are truly within us are not relative, they're absolute. We said that the absolute, there is no shadow in the absolute, only in the relative, in our lives. And God does not get mad. If you were taught that, throw it away. God does not get mad. That would imply a duality. So we're not doing duality. And I shared with you a quote from Robert Bly's book, a little book on the human shadow. He suggests that we are each born with this is last week we talked about this, a 360-degree personality. And if you catch the spiritual meaning in the 360 degrees, that represents wholeness, oneness, unity. That's what it is, a perfect circle. And our exploration last week ended up right there with wholeness. Ernest Holmes tells us in his book, It's Up to You. They've renamed a bunch of his books, so I don't even know. I don't know the original name, but It's Up to You. He wrote this. It's his writing, it's his words that we really want to embody. Spiritually, we are the offspring, if we wish to put it that way, the manifestation or the emanation of a universal wholeness. This universal wholeness is in the very true sense of the term is within us, because as the original principle of life, we have God. We are God, right? Or he doesn't say that, I say that. But he says it in other ways. Or universal spirit, out of which anything and everything was made. Therefore, everything is truly born of God. If this is true, then we are primarily and fundamentally perfect. There is that within us. No, I'll finish him. no matter what we have done to ourselves, because we do stuff to ourselves, which we'll talk about today. We are perfect. That's within us, and we got to remember that it's not human perfect, it's divine perfect, because we are pure consciousness, and pure consciousness is God. So when we were infants, we were born with that perfect 360-degree personality, without editing or censoring, because we didn't know how to do that. We just came in pure spirit, pure spirit. But as we grow up, we learn that certain slices of this 360-degree pie are unacceptable to the people around us. Someone's always got an opinion, especially when you're a young child. Maybe we were shamed for crying, or punished for being angry. Or maybe we were ridiculed for not wanting attention, or acting proud of ourselves. So we learned to repress those slices of our pie. We stuffed them down, the ones that hurt. Children, when they feel hurt, and it carries on into adults, typically stuff down the hurt. They stuff it down, and then it continues. The challenge isn't that we come to wholeness through acceptance and love, but that we stuff them into a bag that we throw over our shoulder, and we drag it around for the rest of our lives. And we wonder sometimes why we feel so heavy, why we feel so down. It's because we're lugging all this stuff around with us without even knowing it. The challenge is, if we don't come to that idea that we are whole, complete, and perfect just the way we are within us, through acceptance and love, then those emotions that we stuff don't stay in that bag. They seep out. They overshadow us. And it happens in relatively small or devastating ways. It flares up. We shake our heads. We feel impotent to be of any help when things like that happen in our world. We get angry. We get very, very angry at how inhumane humanity can be. And right now, it's right in our face. So a lot of anger comes up. And we're going to really delve into what can we do when we are in that state of anger, and put it in a positive spin where we can use that anger to accomplish good, because we can. So I want us to do more today with that emotion that many of us have stuffed and carry around, called anger. So let's turn to the questions. That I have 3 questions for today's talk that I think are worth having, so that we can ask ourselves these things when we're going through that state, that emotion of anger. There are many theories and psychological perspectives on the topic of anger, and what I offer you this morning is simply my perspective on it. And I hope that today's dialogue then would cause you to think, really think about all these questions and come to your own conclusions. Because we don't want to be held down, and we don't want to live the reading on fear. We don't want to live in that fear that is permeating so much today. Everything around us is fear, fear, fear. But we can't feed into that. We cannot feed, we can't live there. We can't live in fear, because the moment we live in fear, we give energy to that emotion. And we don't want to give energy to that emotion. So the first question is, what is anger really? What is it? Well, I'm going to use Greg Bauer's book, Real Love. He writes this: we need to remember that our anger is actually a reaction to the feelings of helplessness and fear that result from a lifetime of struggling to survive without unconditional love. Most of us, or a lot of us, were brought up or raised, or however you want to term those first few years of life, without unconditional love. Some people were lucky. We asked that in our class on Tuesday. And wow, it was we had one person that really had a happy childhood, right? So we were like, tell us about it. We were like, no. Tell us, what did it feel like? What was it? Because everyone else, and that room is full, everyone else, they didn't even understand what it meant to be raised with, forget about unconditional love, just with regular love. So it was so uplifting to hear that this can, and we can change things now. We can change things. So a famous research scientist who had several very important medical breakthroughs was being interviewed by a newspaper reporter who asked him what he thought he was able to archive, why he was able to archive so much more than the average person. Because this was a highly successful man with great self-confidence. In other words, what set him apart from everyone else? And his response, this is a true story, when it came, he said, it all came from a lesson his mother had taught him when he was 2 years old. He'd been trying to grip a bottle of milk, and they were glass in those days, from the refrigerator, and his small hands could not hold that bottle, so it fell on the floor and spilled all over the floor. Well, his mother, instead of being angry with him or punishing him for doing something that he certainly had no business doing, said me never, but she was this amazing mother, I guess. What a wonderful mess you made. I've rarely seen, this is a true story, such a huge puddle of milk. Well, the damage was already done. Would you like to get down and play in the milk before we clean it up? Can you imagine? This woman was like, really, like a saint, like incredible. Indeed, he did. And after a few minutes, his mother continued, you know, whenever you make a mess like this, eventually you have to clean it up. So how would you like to do that? Would you like to use a towel, a sponge, a mop? Which do you prefer? So after they were finished cleaning up the milk, she said, what we have here is a failed experiment in how to carry a big bottle of milk with 2 tiny hands. Let's go out back and fill the bottle with water and see if you can discover a way to carry it without dropping it. And that's what they did. Because of this mother's unconditional love and refusal to get angry with the boy because he made a mistake, this little boy grew up to believe in himself, to realize it's okay to make mistakes. Can you imagine if you were brought up with that? It's okay to make a mistake. It's all right. You can always clean up your mistakes. To realize that it was okay to make them, this child made major contributions to the world afterwards because he believed it's okay to make a mistake. That's from one of Jack Canfield's book, Success Principles. So that was a true story that he put in his book. Many of us do not get that kind of unconditional love when we were growing up. The fact is, probably most of us didn't. But here's an idea for you. Up until, I don't know, 14 or 18, whatever age you want, or never sometimes, you can blame your parents for your hurt, your upset, your anger. And after that, it's time to take responsibility for your life yourself, because you're living it and you're replaying over and over again all those stories that you're carrying around in your bag, and they are not contributing to a healthy life. They are contributing to you abusing yourself again. So it's your responsibility to open up to love, to authentic and genuine love, so that you can let it in when it comes along. If you don't know what it is, which I didn't know until I was almost 50, if you don't know what it is, you can't let it in. And this way you cultivate and nurture a relationship with divine love, which is within us, but no one told us, but it is. Ernest Holmes writes again in the Science of Mind book, without love, nothing can be accomplished. With love, all things are possible. And when we love, our prayers are answered. And the gift of heaven is made. The gift of heaven is life, not death. Love and not hate. Peace and not confusion. And we enter into this paradise through the gateway of love toward one another and toward God. Love is greater than all else and covers a multitude of mistakes. Love overcomes everything and neutralizes all that is unlike itself. Love is God. And we know that this God is within us. So some of the things this morning might sound a little dualistic, but it's to get a point across to ourselves and to that inner child within us, if we haven't done work on that. I think of the Dalai Lama. That man is unconditional love. That is unconditional love. My religion is kindness. And he lives it. He lives it. So these, my friends, are our responsibilities. And these are the things that will dial down, way down, the anger response. Once we learn there's such a thing as this inner love, and that we can cultivate kindness and goodness, no matter what is taking place on this planet. I go out of my way every time I go to, I like to go to Wegmans. That's the best place to do this little spiritual thing, I guess it's spiritual, that I did naturally. And I talk to people, and I don't know, people always come up and they always say something to me, you know. It's really great. They always say something to me. I got 4 Liza Minnelli's the other day. You know, I used to get only Shirley MacLaine, but you know, you change the hair. Anyway, and then I get to have a whole conversation with these people. I feel good, they feel good, and it's like a spiritual practice, but it, to me, is the way I can show love. I don't have to know you. I'll probably never see you again, but it's a wonderful act of love. So don't think it's this gooey, gushy thing. It's not. It's simply being kind. People need kindness. They've always needed it, but they really need it today. And because we live in a world, we may not always be able to feel that 100% unconditionally loved all the time, and we still might get angry. So the next question is anger ever productive? Well, that answer is yes and no. Depending on what we do with that anger. That's what it depends on. It is not productive when it manifests itself in a way, a study released a year or so ago by the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety. Now, I'm not talking about like me when I'm in a car and I get really like a little upset. I'm not talking about that. Like, you're in the left lane, move! I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like really bad. This is like really bad anger. So this study revealed that nearly 80% of drivers express significant, that's the difference, significant anger, aggression, or road rage behind the wheel, at least once a year, at least. In addition, approximately 8 million US drivers have engaged in extreme examples of road rage, including purposefully ramming into another vehicle. Couldn't even do that. Wow. Or getting out of the car. Who's crazy enough to do that? Getting out of the car to confront the person. So one of the authors of the study said people had been shot because they drove too slowly or played the music in their car too loudly. Come on. But, you know, you read about these things happen. This is all the wrong use of anger. But violent traffic disputes are rarely the result of a single incident. Rather, they seem to be the result of personal attitudes and the accumulation of stress in the motorist's life. You know, I always think that, you know, some people are driving really erratically and I get like, oh, this, and then I think, yeah, but I don't know what they're going through. People are going through stuff and, you know, they're just acting out, but other people who are also going through stuff, you know, might not react the same way. So, then it becomes our choice. If we get that, I don't think anyone here gets that angry, but if you get that angry, you know, find someone to really talk to, get therapy or something. So just being angry will never solve the issues that are making you angry. But the physical cues of anger alert you to the fact that something needs to be done. And the way that you express your anger could lead to solving the problem. Anger has created more incredible movements because someone got angry at an action from someone else. For you, you may get angry when cars go flying through a stop sign. You know, where there's children walking around or riding their bicycles. And you could honk your horn or yell and scream, or you could go to the local police department and just make a report and maybe offer to lead a campaign or whatever it is to speak to the council about putting up a stop sign, about a light, about something that is productive from the anger. Now that is the right use of anger, if we can do that. What might be effective, though, is working through those kinds of organizations. Holmes said, let's be a people who are for something and against nothing. So if your anger or frustration at someone causes you to take action for something, then yes, that anger is very, very productive. And just think about what caused the civil rights movement, the suffrage movement. What caused all the demonstrations that are going on all over this country today? What caused it was anger. And then the right use of it was doing something productive. Unity, unifying with others to do something that will be of help. And finally, most importantly, what can you do with your anger? And we know you don't want to hold on to it. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't solve a thing. And if you go back and remember why you were so angry at someone or something, usually, especially if it's with people, it's something small, trivial, that you can't even remember. You can't even remember. It was so ridiculous. But Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes writes, when our minds are filled with thoughts of anger, hatred, and resentment, we are pouring into our body poisons in the making. Too much of this disturbs the upbuilding of body tissues. But degenerative thoughts can be turned into creative, energizing, vitalizing ones. Anger can be turned, he said, into love. And the very power which has been destroyed can be made to build up. So everything that looks like it's being destroyed can be built up, okay? The important thing is to stay out of the fear, which is a close cousin, a close relative of anger. And to know that you do make a difference on this planet, to really know that you make a difference is really important. I of myself can do nothing. You of yourself can do everything. And that's the belief we want to cultivate. I'm going to throw two wild ideas out there. One is to realize that you need in this, what you need in this moment is love, the real deal. Like somebody could just love you, no matter what, even when you're in the middle of anger. So get loved by expressing your anger to someone, not the person or the institution or whatever it is that you're angry at, but you could call one of our practitioners. They're going to love you. They're going to pray with you. They're going to give you lots of love. Call one of them up. It will shift everything. Because sometimes when we're in the middle of anger, we can't do anything with it. It takes over our whole body. So here's the real deal about that. A great deal of damage is done to relationships when we express our anger to the person we are angry with. Do we ever really feel better? I know I don't. I never feel better when I've been angry. I just don't. I don't know. Feel better? Mm-mm. Do we ever really feel better? Is the relationship made better? Do we feel closer to that person? Do they feel closer and warm and fuzzy about us? I don't think so. But expressing your anger to someone else who can love you right in the middle of it is very, very helpful and powerful. This is what Greg Braden, all of his books, he's got a whole bunch of books on love. And he was a keynote speaker at Anton quite a few years ago. It was amazing. He went to every one of his workshops because he had these breakout workshops. Because grown men were sitting on his lap, getting hugged, crying because they'd never been loved in their life. So that's the kind of love we're talking about. Not that you're going to find someone to sit on their lap and cry, but you never know. You never know. And the other item is surrender to the divine, admitting that you may not know how to release your anger, but that you want to. Now, I'm not talking duality, but sometimes when we say, thank you, God, it feels dualistic, and there are people in the spiritual world that will say, that's very dualistic. I don't think it is. I think it's one and the same. If everything's all consciousness, we're just speaking into consciousness, so I don't think it's dualistic. But sometimes you need to sit down and give yourself a talking to. God, I do not know how to get rid of this on my own. I need help. And I know that you can help me. You can help transmute it. I know you will give me what I need. And in that knowing, you will receive. God will give you exactly what you need in that moment. if you will just accept the help, if you believe in this power of the absolute, you may be sitting there thinking about your anger you had in the past, about all the times of anger. Now you get to choose to get rid of it. Don't keep it in that bag, seeping out into everyday life. You can choose to get rid of it. I myself can do nothing. When we turn to God for help in that moment, it comes. We've been promised that by the great master teacher, Jesus. And everything that you will ask in prayer, believing, you shall receive. Anger will be transmuted inside of you. Sometimes we got to do that inner work. In fact, all the time, we got to do that inner work, and it's never finished. We constantly turn within and get help. Transmutation means it's like putting a log onto a fire. God uses it as fuel and energy for the new purposes. First of all, realize that God is a God of love. Even in the quantum world, that love is the glue that holds us all together. I mean, they can't even get around it. They don't like to use that word because that implies emotions, and science doesn't like emotions. But it's all consciousness, it's all love. So it's how you use it, how you use it to produce good in your life. And I'm going to finish up with this little quote from Charles Fillmore, the founder of Unity, one of the co-founders. In his book, Talks on Truth, he wrote this: "The love of God must be felt in the heart. It cannot be described. And the one who has not felt it can have no concept of it from the description of others. But the more we talk about love, the stronger it grows in consciousness. And if we persist in thinking loving thoughts and speaking loving words, we are sure to bring into our experience the feeling of that great love that is beyond description, the very love of God." So this is a week to keep this in the forefront of our minds and to know, to catch ourselves. And always it's important to take that breath before reacting. I won't even say responding. Just taking that breath. Is it even worth it to use that? Because you open up a can of worms with the emotion of anger. Is it worth it? Usually it's not. And if you really feel angry about a situation that's going on in the world right now, do something about it. Do something productive. Use that anger as fuel to move forward in life. And so that is, my friends, my talk on anger. And so it is.